Hello everyone, welcome back to your online lecture. Okay, so now I would like to announce this is your last video on this chapter. Okay, so today we will finish or end up with the chapter 2, that is energy resources. Now let's start with today's lecture without wasting our time. Now the next point is geothermal energy. So let me give you introduction about what is geothermal energy. Everyone knows the interior of the earth is still very hot and the rock in the interior is in molten state. When the water percolates and comes in contact with hot interior rocks, the sulfur gets dissolved in the water and along with hot water comes up in the form of hot springs. You might be heard about the word hot springs, right? This heat can be used to generate energy which is called as geothermal energy. For example, at Manikarn in Himachal Pradesh, the hot springs are being used to generate this type of energy. The use of geothermal energy depends upon the temperature of the hot spring water. If it is higher than 90 degrees Celsius, it is used for industrial purpose, space heating, greenhouses, etc. And suppose if it is less than 90 degrees Celsius, it is used either for house heating or for house cooling. As per my knowledge right now, as I said, it is used for house cooling and house heating. Do we have used this? No idea. Now, next point. Geothermal energy is another non-conventional energy resource having some advantages and some limitations. It is the Earth's heat which escapes as steam at the location of a hot spring. Example, in the United States, most geothermal reservoirs of hot water are located in the western states, Alaska and Hawaii. Wells can be drilled into underground reservoirs for the generation of electricity. In short, geothermal energy is defined as the heat from the earth. When we get heat from the earth and we convert that heat into electrical energy, then actually it is called as geothermal energy. Now, in PPT, can you see a word called magma? What is this magma? These are molten rocks few miles under the earth. The melting of rocks occurs due to high temperatures because of hot rock or water. Magma acts as a storehouses of geothermal energy. Guys, this can be asked for MCQ. Dash act as a storehouses of geothermal energy. So your answer should be magmas. The heat above the surface of earth is absorbed and hence almost everywhere the shallow ground or upper layer of about 10 feet of the earth's surface maintain a nearly constant temperature between 50 degree and 60 degree Fahrenheit, that is 10 degree to 16 degrees Celsius. Now, I hope you have understood about geothermal energy. Geothermal energy is nothing but what? It's a heat that we obtain from the earth crust. Now, what are the advantages of geothermal energy? It is an inexhaustible energy resource. It is clean and sustainable. It is good for the hilly, remote areas wherein no other energy is available. Suppose it's a hilly area and of course there we wouldn't get energy, electricity. So at that time we can use geothermal energy to generate electricity. Now, let's see what are the limitations of geothermal energy. These hot springs are generally away from the areas having potentials of industrial development. Definitely, we won't get hot springs just at the border of our city. Definitely, it's far away from our areas. It might be in hilly area, like this area which is not in use. So such type of area we will get, in such type of area we will get geothermal energy. So, and this area might be definitely away from our industrial area, from our residential area. It cannot be carried out for a longer distance. The sulfurs, which comes out together with hot water and other gases, pollute the soil nearby areas, and it can make air pollution also. So these are the limitations of geothermal energy. Now, let's say this geothermal energy power generation, actually how it has taken place. The geothermal energy is generated by using thermal power plants. Now, what is this thermal power plant? In a thermal power plant, steam is produced and used to spin a turbine that operates a generator. You can imagine this, okay? A steam is produced and is used to spin a turbine that operates a generator. A conventional thermal power plant uses coal, oil or natural gas as fuel to boil water to produce the steam. Obviously, how do we get steam? Steam means is nothing but water vapor. And when we boil water, then only we get water vapor. Now, there are three major types of thermal power plants and they are following: steam turbine power plant, gas turbine power plant and diesel engine power plant. These are the three basic types of thermal power plant for geothermal energy. Now let's see, we have only one, that is steam turbine power plant. Now, steam turbine power plants use coal, oil or gas as fuel, whereas gas turbines use oil or gas only as fuel. In diesel power plants, diesel oil is used as the fuel. So based on which kind of fuel I need for these thermal plants, they are categorized as a steam, diesel and gas. Now, let's see about steam turbine power plant. In steam power turbine plant, a fuel is burned inside a boiler to heat water and generate steam. This steam is then used to drive turbines, which is in turn drive the power generators to make electricity. This steam is suitable for the use of thermal energy of relative low temperature, that is below 600 degrees Celsius. The steam coming out of the turbine is condensed to water and is recycled. See, here we are not wasting water. Once it is boiled, it gets converted into water vapor, that is steam, and with the help of the steam, a power generator rotates with the help of turbine, and then again the remaining steam is condensed to get water again. So that is recycle as well as. In order to improve the efficiency of steam power plant, some additional function parts such as superheater, economizer, etc. is also included in the plant. Now, let me tell you what are the components of this plant. Coal and ash system, air and gas system, boiler house, superheater, economizer, air preheater, cooling system, turbine and alternator. Now, let me tell you what are these. Coal and ash system. In this system, the coal from the coal storage is fed to the boiler through coal handling equipment for the generation of steam. Ash, so produced due to ash storage through ash handling system. Definitely, why I need coal and ash? To generate water vapor. Now, that is steam. Second, air and gas system. Why I need this? Air is supplied to the combustion chamber of the boiler through a draught fan. Next, boiler house. Boilers burn the fuel transferred from the tank and use the resulting heat to convert water into steam. Now the next one is superheater. Superheater is a heat exchanger that increases the steam pressure and also eliminates moisture in the steam by using the high temperature fuel gases from the boiler. Now, this might be a new component for us, economizer. The water from the condenser is passed to the economizer, which heats up the water and sends it to the boiler. Next, air preheater. Air preheater acts as a heat exchanger. It uses heat from the fuel gases and heats up the air coming from the air intake system. Then this heated air is sent to boiler. This ensures proper combustion and it helps to improve the overall efficiency of the power plant. Now, cooling system. As the name suggests, definitely it is to cool water. The steam coming out of the turbine is condensed to water using the condenser and cooling tower arrangement that overall called as cooling system. Turbine and alternator. The turbine converts the heat energy into mechanical energy and alternators convert this mechanical energy into electrical energy. So these are the components of this steam turbine power plant. See guys, they will also ask which is the following component or which are the following components of steam turbine power plant. So what are they? Coal and ash system, air and gas system, boiler house, superheater, economizer, air preheater, cooling system, turbine and alternator. Now, what is the next? Now, the last point of your chapter is overuse of natural resources and its impact on environment. I hope from your childhood you have seen what kind of problem we people are facing right now. Because of overuse of these natural resources, we are facing a problem of global warming. Yes, the most problem we are facing is what? Global warming. Then climate change. This is a drastic change over the century. Then let's see. So overuses of natural resources and its impact on environment. The natural resources have been overused or overexploited due to increased population across globe and thereby increased need of land. This is largely made by deforestation. Many forest lands are used for mining, agriculture, grazing and recreation and for development of dams. Right? The actual main reason is what? Increased population. And to satisfy each and everyone's need, we are overusing whatever we are having naturally. Right? We are overusing. Now, first point is overexploitation of forest. Since ages, humans have depended heavily on forest for food, medicine, shelter, wood and cloth. With growing civilization, the demands for raw material like timber, pulp, minerals, fuel, wood, etc. shooted up, resulting in large-scale logging, mining, road building and clearing of forest. Our forests contribute substantially to the national economy. Excessive use of fuel wood and charcoal, expansion of urban agriculture and industrial areas and overgrazing have together led to overexploitation of our forests, leading to their rapid degradation. And because of this exploitation of forest, we are having less rain, right? Second point is overuse of water resources. Everyone knows this. Water is life. We can't survive without water. We can survive few days without food, but we can't survive a single day without water. Yeah, so water is an indispensable natural resource on this earth on which all life depends. About 97% of the earth's surface is covered by water, and most of the animals and plants have 60 to 65% water in their body. Tell me about human body. How much human body contains water? Tell me, you tell me. Global distribution of water resource is quite uneven depending upon several geographical factors, right? Some cities, some districts have lots of water, where some have very few less water resources. Like take an example of Kolhapur. It's a fully gifted by river, and my Sholapur, it's bad. It is not gifted by any. Yeah, we have one river, but it is totally dry river, Bhima Nadi. Shit. So, water uses by humans is of two types: water withdrawal and water consumption. Water withdrawal means taking water from groundwater or surface water resources, and water consumption, the water which is taken up but not written for reuse. Right? Overuse of groundwater for drinking, irrigation, and domestic purpose has resulted in rapid depletion of groundwater in various regions, leading to lowering of water table and drying of wells. This is the main problem. Pollution of many of the groundwater aquifers has made of these wells unfit for consumption. Because of pollution, even we can't drink river water as it is. Can we? No. You have seen animals being washed in river near. Okay, so because of that, rivers are so dirty. We can't drink that water as it is. Rivers and streams have long been used for discharging the waste. Most of the civilizations have grown and flourished on the banks of rivers, but unfortunately, growth in turn has been responsible for pollution of the rivers. Just now I said, right? And the next point is mineral resources overuse. Overuse of mineral resources. The minerals are extracted from Earth's crust. The rate of accumulation of minerals is very slow, but rate at which the surface area of Earth is utilized for human activity, there is a drastic reduction in mineral resource. Also, environmental impact on mineral causes shortage. And the last point is overuse of land resources. Because of increasing of population growth, the demands for arable land for producing food and fuel wood is also increasing. Hence, there is more and more pressure on the limited land resources, which are getting degraded due to overexploitation. Soil erosion, waterlogging, salinization and contamination of the soil with industrial waste like fly ash, pressed mud or heavy metals all cause degradation of land. Various anthropogenic activities like hydroelectric projects, large dams, reservoirs, constructions of roads and railway lines, constructions of buildings, mining, etc. are responsible for clearing of large forested areas. See, what is the moral of the story is we are responsible of the degradation of any natural resources, not even natural resources, for the entire environment. We are the reasons for destroying our beautiful natural environment gifted by God. So that's why we are only facing the problem. So definitely we will find the solution. And I always say, instead of talking about problems, just think, no, don't think, just start working with solution. See, you guys are very lucky. You're born and brought in Kolhapur district, which is a green city, right? You are really lucky. But take care of this beautiful city. Not even this city. Use things wisely which you have, whatever it is. Use it wisely. So guys, this is how we have finished with chapter 2, energy resources. Please don't ignore this subject. This is very important. Okay, bye bye. Have a nice day, guys.